Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering Glacial Augment Ahri, the Nine-Tailed Fox.
The first star doesn't control my destiny. I do.
Ahri is a champion with some very high mobility and some great pick potential. She can use her ultimate for some really high mobility and close a gap on a target, and then use her E ability to charm a target towards her and get a really nice pick for you or your team. She's got some very high burst damage when she acquires her items, and some really high outplay potential as well. Your ultimate has 3 different charges, and it's great for dodging all sorts of different skill shots. Finally, Ahri also has some pretty decent poke damage and sustain. Both of these come from your Q ability, and as long as you can land it on the enemy champion, you will do some pretty nice poke damage. Now, although she is one of the better mid laners in solo queue at the moment, she still of course has some cons. She first is a really squishy champion, so you have to be very careful wherever you position, and make sure you're dodging skill shots with your ultimate. Ahri herself is pretty skill shot reliant as well. If you can't really land your charm ability, it's pretty hard to follow up with the rest of your kit. She is a pretty mana hungry champion as well, and she also has some high cooldowns early on. Therefore, until you get some points in your abilities and some cooldown reduction, be careful when using your abilities. Now for your runes, you have 2 main options, and the first one is going Inspiration and Domination, grabbing Glacial Augment as your keystone. This will make it so whenever Ahri attacks a target, they will be slowed, which of course makes landing her skill shots a lot easier, and of course she can stick on top of them as well. I then like to go for Magical Footwear, so I get free boots at 10 minutes just to save a little bit of money, and then I pick up Biscuit Delivery, so I get a free biscuit every 3 minutes just to help with my sustain. Then finally, since I pretty much always go for a Corrupting Potion start, I'll then pick up Time Warp Tonic so my potions last a little bit longer, and I'll also get 5% movement speed, which helps with finding targets. As for that domination side, I like to go for Cheap Shot and Ingenious Hunter. Cheap Shot's going to be great because you will deal that bonus true damage to targets that are slowed by your Glacial Augment, or of course Charmed. Then, since we go for a Twin Shadows and a Hextech GLP in this build, we want to pick up Ingenious Hunter just to make that active item cooldown reduction just a little bit shorter. You could of course still go for Electrocute instead of Glacial Augment, but I find this setup a hell of a lot stronger. Now for my summoner spells, I first of course like to pick up Flash. Although Ahri does have her ultimate, which does have some great defensive uses, Flash just gives you another one, and you are a pretty squishy champion, so you can save yourself over and over again. Of course, if your ultimate is in cooldown as well, you can always flash forward and charm a target and follow up with the rest of your kit to delete them on top of it. Now as for my second summoner spell, I'll pretty much always go for Ignite. Ahri does kind of fit the role as a mobile assassin, and when you add Ignite on top of it, you will have a lot of damage and can definitely delete targets. Alright, now let's look at Ahri's abilities, starting with her passive, STY Grace. With this passive, whenever Ahri lands 2 ability hits against a champion within 1.5 seconds, she gains 20% bonus movement speed for 3 seconds. So in a sense, you can kind of think of this passive as a phase rush. Ahri's already a really mobile champion, and when you add the bonus movement speed on top of what she already has, she will be running around teamfights rather quickly and can definitely find some picks on the squishy champions. So just pretty much whenever you land your abilities, you'll get this bonus movement speed and use it to dodge skill shots or get to the targets that you need to. Now let's look at that Q ability, Orb of Deception. So passively, whenever you hit an enemy with one of your abilities, you'll gain a charge of Essence Theft and gain up to 3 charges per ability cast. Upon reaching 9, your next Orb of Deception will heal her for between 3 and 18 plus 9% AP every time an enemy is hit. So this will just give you a little bit of extra sustain throughout the lane phase and fights. Now when activated, Ahri sends an Orb of Arcane Energy in the target direction, dealing magic damage to all enemies it passes through, then pulls it back, dealing true damage instead. So this here is your bread and butter ability because you can last hit minions and poke the enemy champion with it at the same time. You'll of course want to try to hit the enemy champion with both parts of the ability, but the pullback is the most important part because it's the one that deals true damage. Make sure you max this ability first and farm up minion waves and try to poke the enemy. Now let's look at your W, Foxfire. When activated, Ahri summons 3 Spectral Flames which orbit her for 5 seconds. These flames prioritize champions hit by charm or any enemy hit by Ahri's last basic attack within 3 seconds and 725 range. After 0.25 seconds, each flame targets a prioritized enemy, or after 0.4 seconds pursues the closest visible enemy in range, prioritizing champions, then the last target of your basic attack, and deals magic damage. So this here is another really nice damaging ability, and usually you will want to follow it after a charm because it activates a little bit quicker and will always hit that target. Of course it is pretty good at last hitting as well, but usually you will want to try to hit the enemy champions with this ability as much as you can. Now let's look at that E, Charm. When activated, Ahri blows a kiss in a line that deals magic damage to the first enemy hit, charming and slowing them by 65%. If charm hits a champion, Ahri's abilities will deal 20% bonus damage to them for 5 seconds. So yeah, usually this will be the ability you want to start your combo off with because it will allow you to land your other skill shots because it of course pulls them towards you and slows them, but it also makes you deal bonus damage to them for 5 seconds. Therefore, a really common combo is charming your target and then using your Q and W really quickly. It will do a lot of burst damage and can even one-shot squishy targets. If you are trying to escape, it's also pretty decent in those situations as well because it is a 65% slow. And that brings us to the ultimate, Spirit Rush. When activated, Ahri dashes in the target direction and then fires energy bolts up to 3 visible targets to deal magic damage. Spirit Rush can be recast twice more at a 1-second static cooldown within 10 seconds of activation at no additional cost. So this ability here is why Ahri has so much mobility. It's like having 3 flashes you can use within 10 seconds that actually deal damage to targets. Therefore, you will be able to use it in offensive and defensive situations. Use it to get to the backline to delete a squishy in team fights, or if you do get targeted and you need to escape, use it to jump away. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your Q ability first as quickly as possible because it's great at farming minion waves and poking the enemy champion. You'll then want to max your W ability Foxfire second. This also adds a really nice chunk of damage into your kit and can allow you to delete squishies. That of course means you want to save your E ability for last, but take an early point in the ability at level 2 so you can charm the target and get some damage off. Now let's look at some of your combos, and first up is your trading combo. To pull off this combo, you first want to start by charming the target and instantly shoot out your Q and activate your W to get off your full burst combo. Both shots of your Q ability will land because the target will be charmed and slowed, and of course you will get off 20% more damage because of the charm bonus. For the next combo, we incorporate the R to close a gap onto the target. Surprise your enemy by jumping towards them with your R and then follow up with a normal combo of your E, then Q and W. Yet again, your full combo will land because the target will be charmed and you will deal 20% bonus damage. At this point, you can always reactivate your ultimate to add additional damage, to dodge skill shots, or jump out if the target is already deleted. And for the last combo, we're going to incorporate your items. For this combo, you'll first want to open up with your Twin Shadows to slow the target with your Ghost, and then do the normal combo of your R, E, Q, W. Of course, during this combo, I like to activate my Hextech GLP just for that additional damage, and of course the slow. During the lane phase, farming will be the first thing that's pretty damn important. You want to focus on getting as many last hits as possible with your auto attacks, and use your Orb of Deception as well to help you farm. Then of course there is trading, which is another important part of the lane phase. You'll want to try and poke the enemy as much as you can with Orb of Deception while you're also last hitting. If you see an opportunity, try and get your charm off onto that enemy so you can get the free damage from your Q and your W onto that enemy. Once your lane is pretty shoved, roaming is something else that you should be focusing on. Ahri of course has some pretty high damage and some great mobility, so use your Spirit Rush whenever you are ganking for that extra mobility. Teamfighting on Ahri is mostly about using your Spirit Rush for mobility while trying to find a pick on a squishy enemy carry. If you can find a good angle on one, use your charm to charm the target and combo your Orb of Deception and Foxfire with it for your really high damage. You should however try to find a pick before a teamfight even breaks out to give your team an advantage. You have high mobility and your charm can set up some really easy kills for yourself and your teammates, so try to find a pick and then go into a team fight afterwards. Alright, now let's look at some hard matchups, and first up is Heimerdinger. He's pretty frustrating for anybody to go against, but he's really strong against Ahri because he can use his turrets to hide behind and make it really hard for you to land a charm on him. Engaging into a Heimerdinger altogether is a pretty bad idea because if you try to use your ultimate to get on top of him, if he stuns you with a grenade, his turrets will destroy you and you will easily lose that trade. For the next hard matchup here, I've got Lux. Lux can be pretty hard to deal with because if she's landing her rooting ability, she has the potential to 100-0 Ahri since she is pretty squishy. You'll therefore have to abuse your high mobility and try to get on top of Lux and delete her afterwards. Dodge skill shots at all costs because if they land, you're going to have a very tough time. Next up here, we've got Malzahar. He's a really hard matchup for Ahri because he can shove minion waves really quickly, and his passive spell shield is a really solid defensive that will block your charm if it ends up coming in. Therefore, you will have to use another ability to pull off his spell shield before you go for an all-in with your charming ability. Also be very careful whenever he has his ultimate because it'll lock you down and do some insane damage. And last up, we've got Zilean. Zilean's going to be a pretty hard matchup for you because his bomb combo does a ton of damage and he's also pretty safe at the same time. If you do manage to actually pull off your combo and try to delete Zilean, he of course has his ultimate to bring him back to life, which he can also use on his allies as well, so if you pick anybody off and Zilean's there, he can easily save them. Don't ever overcommit if you see a Zilean, because his ultimate is really solid. Alright, now let's finish this off with the item build, which starts with a Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem. You could of course go for Doran's Ring and 2 health pots as well, but I find I get a lot more sustain from the Corrupting Potion, and it of course works great with a Time Warp Tonic. For the core items on Glacial Augment Ahri, you want to go for Twin Shadows, Hextech GLP, and a Morellonomicon. Your Glacial Augment, Twin Shadows, and Hextech GLP all slow the target, so sticking on top of them is incredibly easy when you are going for your combos. Twin Shadows of course allows you to summon your ghosts, which will hunt down enemies, reveal them, and slow them, and also gives you cooldown reduction, movement speed, and 70 ability power. All things that are fantastic for Ahri. Then you've got your Hextech GLP that gives you 80 ability power, gives you a really nice chunk of mana, 10% cooldown reduction, and you can of course activate it as well to shoot out some frost bolts that do some nice damage and also slow your enemies. Then of course you got the Morellonomicon in there as well for the additional ability power, a really nice health pool, and you get magic penetration and of course apply grievous wounds, which is fantastic against healing abusing champions. Now in between these core items, of course you will want to pick up your boots, and you can get either Sorcerer's Shoes if you want magic penetration, Ionian Boots if you want 10% cooldown reduction, or Merc Treads against high AP and CC heavy teams. Usually I'll go for Sorcerer's Shoes myself, but all 3 are great options. Now for your item pool, of course first you can go for Luden's Echo. You will get some nice mana, ability power, and cooldown reduction, but it will also increase your burst damage at the same time because you will get your passive called Echo, which will, when you have 100 charges, do some additional damage. If you then want a really high AP build, you can get Rabadon's Deathcap. This will increase your ability power by a percentage, so if you want as much ability power as possible, you will have to pick one up. Then, if you're looking for some magic penetration, you could always pick up a Void Staff. This will be great in the late game if you are against tankier champions that have a bunch of magic resist if you need to cut through it. Then instead, if you are looking for defensive options, you have the Zhonya's and the Banshee's Veil. Zhonya's is really solid because you will be able to enter stasis if somebody gets on top of you to become invulnerable, but Banshee's Veil is also fantastic as well because you will get a spell shield and it will absorb a spell every 40 seconds or so. For my example full build though, I go for Twin Shadows, then I choose my boots, get the Hextech GLP, Morellonomicon, Rabadon's Deathcap, and a Void Staff. You'll have an absolute ton of ability power, so you'll do a big chunk of burst damage, you will have the 2 activations as well, and of course you will have the magic penetration from Void Staff. And that covers everything I've got for Glacial Augment Ahri. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and visit the video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server and a second channel that I upload daily to now, so those are some you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys so much for checking out the video, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.